Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Anna and I make videos about literature and gaming, so if you're into that, please consider subscribing. Today I'm gonna play some Resident Evil 8, which is a horror game set in a Transylvanian village, and I myself was a Transylvanian villager for 21 years, so I wanna see if Capcom managed to capture my youth in this game. Disclaimer, I am basing my review on my own personal experiences, so the stuff that I say might not apply to everyone who lives in Transylvania. But before we jump into it, I wanna give you a quick explanation of what Transylvania actually is. Transylvania is a historical region in central Romania, but the term sometimes encompasses the entire upper western side of the country, including Maramureș, Banat, Krishna, and the others. Transylvania is very famous for its legendary castles, beautiful churches, creepy forests, wicked roads, bear invasions, and the stunning landscape. The most common tourist injuries and deaths are related to bear attacks, so if you decide to come here, please, for the love of God, stay away from them. Despite our countless wonders, the Western world only knows about us in association to Bram Stoker's anti-Eastern European xenophobic masterpiece, Dracula. It has a very diverse culture, and basically every county has its own unique traditions, music, folk dance, folk art, traditional clothing, and cuisine as well. And every village you visit is like a whole new universe. Although the majority of the population are Romanian, it has quite a large Hungarian population, including the Țuică, who are by DNA a little bit more Asian than the rest of Hungarians, and for some reason they always carry pocket knives. Also there are the Romanis, including the Gábor Roma, who are considered to be the aristocrat caste of Romanian Roma people. And of course we have a few Ukrainians and Germans living here as well. Now, Transylvania has quite a controversial history, which is why you can see a lot of Romanians and Hungarians arguing about it all around the internet. And that specific conversation always makes me uncomfortable because I'm binational and I am very proud of both sides of my ancestry, so I cannot pick sides. And speaking from experience, I can tell you that life in Transylvania is quite wicked and exciting, and of course a lot of fun. So without further ado, let's dissect this game.
Long ago, a young girl went with her mother to pick berries for her father, who was hard at work. But the forest greeted them with a dark, cold silence.
It is true that Transylvanian folklore is full of creepy and strange tales, but I haven't heard anything like this before. I recently read a study about how communism influenced our folklore and got filled with the political propaganda of that era. With that said, just the fact that the tale mentioned her dad being hard at work, and the fact that the story itself is about being punished for taking something that wasn't earned, that does make it a believable Transylvanian tale. To be honest, given the narration style and the visuals, this intro looks more like the Tim Burton adaptation of a Neil Gaiman retelling of a Transylvanian communist folktale.
What is with the creepy story? She's only 6 months old.
Woman at the store said it was traditional. A local tale.
I don't think you will see a fairy tale book with a cover like that around here. Ours usually have some very colorful covers, and they mostly depict a young couple. Straight off the bat, this house looks very stereotypically Transylvanian. The carpets, the decoration, the furnishing, everything looks pretty neat. Also, see those striped carpets? Well, if you don't have one of those, you're not a real Transylvanian villager. Well, this is a bit morbid because we only cover our mirrors when somebody dies. At least that's the tradition in my village. And we usually only keep it covered between their death and their funeral. This ceramic stuff looks like something you could buy on the roadside in Korund, which is in eastern Transylvania. We really like collecting this kind of stuff. That's a lovely pillowcase. There are multiple types of embroideries and stitching styles that you can see in traditional Transylvanian decorations, especially on decorative pillows. And this one in particular reminds me of the Beregi cross-stitching, a style which originates from the days of the Kingdom of Hungary, from the old Bereg county, which currently is divided between Hungary, Romania, and Ukraine. In Romania, you can mostly see stuff like this up in Satu Mare, I think. Beregi embroidery is characterized by its use of symmetric and geometric design, which is made of cross-stitching. Plus, it is used in jokes drawing parallels to software development, like this. We have this crochet lace stuff basically everywhere, and you can see a lot of memes about this.
That smells good. What's that?
Oh, hands off, mister. It's ciorba de legume. Ciorba de legume. It's a local recipe.
Oh god, I love the way she pronounces it. Ciorba de legume is a form of vegetable soup. I'm gonna put up a recipe. If you're interested, you can pause it, screenshot it, and try it for yourself. It's basically the easiest thing you can make, and it has hundreds of variations. That wine bottle over there says Regina Roșie, which means Red Queen, and although that is not a real brand, it is a believable name for a Romanian wine. FYI, Romanian wine is pretty good and it's very cheap. Like, during the lockdown, I drank Prahova Valley instead of water to get me through the darker days. And believe me, it was very helpful. That dish over there looks like sarmale, which is a cabbage roll filled with meat and rice. Okay, I'm gonna skip this scene because it's too depressing. I remember that winters used to actually look like this back in the late 90s and early 2000s, but due to climate change, it is not happening anymore. Back in the days we had this kind of snow from late November to early March, but nowadays we usually only get this kind of snow for a few days, only in December and in mid-March. And the fact that some people still deny the existence of global warming is still beyond me. Yikes, you're gonna need a tetanus shot after touching that. Now that we are going to the fun part, I'm gonna judge whether or not the developers of this game would actually survive a winter in a Transylvanian village. Oh buddy, that's not a good place to store your firewood at. It is gonna get wet from the snow, and every time you need to use it you will have to wait like hours until it dries and it becomes usable, so you should either cover it with a plastic sheet or just build a separate shed for it, which keeps it away from the snow and the rain. These potatoes are so triggering to me. The proper way to store potatoes is in cases like this because they need proper airflow. If you leave them in cardboard boxes like this, the accumulated moisture will lead to spoilage and sprouting. Wow, this photo is actually really cool. There's this awesome Facebook page made by someone who collects old photos from all around Romania. I'm gonna leave the link below because it's really awesome and I think you should check it out. Those garlic braids are a very cute little detail. Now, contrary to popular belief, we don't hang them up like this to keep the vampires away. This is just a way to keep them dry and make sure that they survive the winter.
Where the hell am I?
I can actually answer that. You are in the Astra Museum in the Dumbrava Sibiului Natural Park. This is Europe's greatest outdoors museum and it's deadass an entire village. It was actually built with the intention to preserve Romania's authentic traditional culture from the outside influences. I actually visited this museum not so long ago and it absolutely blew my mind. I was walking around there like a fat kid in the candy store and everything I've seen there genuinely touched my soul. It took us 4 hours to explore the whole place. Now, the reason why I think it was modeled after that specific museum is because we don't have windmills in Transylvania like this anywhere else, just in the Astra Museum. That's something you would only see in the southeastern side of the country, down in Dobroja. Also, obviously villages don't look like this anymore. At first sight, when I saw some game clips from this game, I thought that the story was set either between the two world wars or the early communist era, because they definitely managed to capture that vibe perfectly. I don't think I've ever seen an enclosure like this in Transylvania. Where I used to live, people just let their animals roam freely because the happier they are, the better they taste. Unlike that tasteless filth that you can buy in supermarkets. Only a noob villager would leave their hay outside during winter, and this is so triggering. I don't think we have these kinds of water towers here. The ones we have look more like this. Okay guys, we found the Hungarians. Let's take a look at this wooden gate. Although each region in Transylvania has their own style of wooden gates, the two most iconic ones are the Maramureșan style and the Székely style. And one originates from the northern side of the country, from Maramureș, and it looks like this. As you can see, the carvings have these interesting twisted, braided, outstanding patterns. The other style is from eastern Transylvania, from Harghita, and it's done by the Székelys, who are a Hungarian ethnic group. This has more flowery patterns and many people don't know this, but they are actually full of ancient Hungarian pagan symbols. Like even in this one you can see the tree of life and the sun. According to ethnographers, back in the pre-Christian era this had a very similar meaning to the Japanese story gates, but nowadays they are used to signify ethnic pride. Gates like this are also very common here. I've only seen this kind of tractors in Bosnian music videos. The ones you'd commonly see in Transylvania look like this, because this brand is actually manufactured in Romania. I've never seen a cart like this in my village, but according to the Astra Museum, they were common in Alba County back in the days. The ones I've seen so far usually look like this. Also, most households in Transylvanian villages have at least one dog, so if there was a stranger walking around the village, you would hear a lot of barking and growling. Now that I have a knife, I can finally identify as a Țuică. My mom has one of these iron fireplaces, and these are the best both for heating and cooking. They warm up the room in like 5 minutes, and since it takes a longer time for the food to be ready compared to a gas or electric stove, the food will actually have a better taste. I don't think I've ever seen anyone in a Transylvanian village hanging stuff like this on their walls. You are not gonna find guns in Transylvania that easily. Only 2.5% of the population are gun owners, which honestly is pretty nice because we never had mass shootings or school shootings or anything like that. And believe me, nobody would just hand a gun to a total stranger here. These cauldrons are used for making gulyás or tokan. Those are some very interesting foods. 150 lei for a monster? Well, sign me the fuck up. That's 30 euros or $36. Also, Romanian money is one of the cutest and most colorful one, and tourists always talk about how much they like it.
If there are any survivors out there, come to Louisa's house near the fields.
Luisa is in fact a Romanian name, and we're gonna go look for her. This is basically what anti-vaxxers think will happen to vaccinated people. I looked up in the wiki, and these guys are called uriași in the game, which literally translates as giant, and in folklore uriașis are way bigger than this. You can actually find watermills like this in Transylvania. I know there's one in Remetea and there's one in Bologa, but the one in Bologa is actually a functioning medieval washing machine. But the one here looks specifically like the one from the Astra Museum. This old lady reminds me of Baba Koja, who is basically our version of the Slavic Baba Yaga. But her design looks more like Muma Pădurii, who is the mother of the forest. Oh, by the way, for those of you who speak Romanian, I can recommend this YouTube channel called Mitologica. They have some very interesting videos related to Romanian folklore. To be honest, a Romanian bunica does not dress like that. She should be wearing something like this. I see some Christian Orthodox looking imagery here, but I cannot comment on it because I am not religious and I know literally nothing about that subject. Okay, I know one thing, that's definitely not Christian Orthodox stuff. Is this supposed to be the center of the village? Because in most Transylvanian villages that I've been in, the center always has a church, a pub, and a school right next to each other. That's basically our holy trinities. So if this is the center, that is very unrealistic. I love this statue. You can see statues of female warriors all around Romania, especially statues of 2nd Lieutenant Ecaterina Teodoriu, who fought on the front line during World War I. Our graves don't look like this, they usually have a concrete border and some concrete tops. This church reminds me of the wooden churches of Maramureș, which is the northern side of the country, but you can find some of these in Cluj County as well. The ones in Maramureș are considered to be the iconic ones, and there are almost 100 Orthodox churches and a few Greek Catholic ones, which are high timber constructions with characteristic tall, slim bell towers at the western end of the building. This is an interesting gate. I am not familiar with this style. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that oven is specifically made for baking bread and it should be outside. It's very dangerous to keep something like this inside, mainly because of the smoke, but also with those wooden walls, it's not very safe. By the way, homemade Transylvanian bread is the fucking best. My granny used to make some and nothing compares to that taste. I've never seen a Transylvanian villager dressed like Luisa. That's a very interesting outfit. That terracotta fireplace brings back some memories. One thing I do not miss from my younger days is chopping wood and waking up in the middle of the night to throw some logs onto the fireplace. Those are some very stereotypically Balkan curtains. You can find that everywhere around here. I have to point out that you would not see a house that is run down like this, which is currently inhabited. Especially not in my old village, where people were basically obsessed with their public image and always tried to show off, so they always made sure that their homes looked as pretty and as wealthy as possible. Which means that people took house maintenance very seriously. Also, people would not display blank plates like that. The ones you usually see on walls are ceramic decorations. I know people who collect these and have hundreds of them. This guy wearing suits always gets me. If you drive by any Balkan country, you're gonna see villagers working on the fields wearing suits. Cause you know, when your nice clothes become too worn out to be worn in church, you can just start wearing them on the fields. Hashtag stop wastefulness. Looking at that headscarf. Older people do wear headscarves in Transylvanian villages, but they wear some more colorful ones, not the white ones. Something like this. We have to skip ahead because I don't like this part. Is that an old barcass? Back in the 90s, a lot of people in my village had this type of pickup truck. My grandma has one of those green couches. It took me a while to figure out what region this is from, because the towels I've seen so far have more geometric patterns, but after a bit of research I realized that this is also Maramamuresan style. Ah, the classic green furniture. I haven't seen any of these since the 90s. We all used to have this, but suddenly everybody switched to the cheap IKEA style furniture. Dude, believe me, nobody in a Transylvanian village would leave 500 lei laying around like that, especially not in coins. By the way, that bag is not big enough for 500 lei. I mean, this is just 70 lei that I have. Okay, what the hell? Oh my god. This kind of copper boiler is part of a mechanism that is used for making alcoholic beverages called Țuică or palinka or palinka. Those are some very hardcore drinks that smell and taste horribly, but for some reason everybody likes them. But these look way too big. And it's weird that there are two of the copper part but none of the inox part. Plus, why the hell are those pipes going into the cupboard? I don't know. Maybe the developers thought these were some water heaters or something.
Why the fuck is this happening again? Shit!
Man, if you wanted to live a peaceful life, you shouldn't have come to Transylvania. I'm joking. Calm down, calm down. I think that Transylvania is in fact the perfect place to run away to if you have some problems. Because, you know, people are very welcoming, the landscape is beautiful, plus on the upside everything is cheap. Well, that's it for today. My final verdict is that whoever designed this game would not survive the winter in a Transylvanian village. Their food would go bad before the first snow, their firewood would be unusable, and their hay would be frozen and they could not feed their animals. Also, if this game was set sometime between the two world wars or the early communist era, then I would say that it's an accurate depiction of a Transylvanian village, but not for today. Partially, it was a great choice to model it after the Astra Museum, because that place looks awesome. But the problem is that they collect stuff from all around the country, which is why there are so many mixed elements in the game. It was a bit strange to see this cultural mixture of different regions, because people here are extremely traditionalist and we tend to stick to our own stuff. I'm not surprised that they chose to represent the Țuică and the Maramamuresan styles, because those are some of the most iconic styles of Transylvania and possibly the most aesthetically pleasing ones to the foreign eye. Anyway, this setting is very atmospheric, very nice, and honestly not as scary as I expected. With all honesty, Capcom did a more accurate and less offensive representation of Transylvania than Russia and Poland were represented in the new Shadow and Bone or The Witcher Netflix series. So far, I'm gonna rate it a 3 out of 5 stars. If you want to see the rest of the game and you want me to analyze it, then please leave a comment and tell me what parts of the game you want to hear more about. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos of me struggling to play video games while talking about literature and history, then make sure to subscribe and press that notification button. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.